Has grief touched your life too? If you're listening, watching this, it likely has. For me personally, grief has touched my life twice, the latest instance being the loss of a pregnancy. And I know how challenging that space of grief can be. And perhaps you are in that in-between space where you've asked for support, you've prayed for help, but it's yet to arrive. Change has yet to occur. You're in that no man's land between asked and answered. And I know just how harrowing that can be. And so I'm here to offer a semblance of support. In this video, I'll share a short story synthesized to support simply by listening and taking it in. I'll share the attached mantra, the technology that I've found to be supportive in grounding me back into being rather than getting lost in story and emotion. I'll share a little insight into my own personal story as well as touch upon some tantric teachings. Well, let's get stuck in with the story. The Cloak of Clay. Vīrya Karuṇā, power, tenderness. Dear adventurer, once Prem was gifted a beautiful cloak. Woven from silk and sunlight, it shimmered with promise and potential. Everyone admired it, and when Prem wore it, he felt strong, seen, and capable. But then a storm came. His cloak grew heavy, dirty, and ragged. He tried to hide it, tried to fix it, but nothing worked. He wandered into the woods, weighed down by shame. There, by a riverbank, sat an old woman with clay-stained hands. "That's a good cloak," she said, seeing his tattered wrap. "Not anymore," Prem muttered. "It's ruined." She smiled. "No, child, it's being seasoned." She motioned to a line of vessels drying in the sun. Pots, bowls, cups, all shaped from clay. "I used to wear cloaks too," she said, "but one day I realized I wasn't meant to be covered in silk. I was meant to become a vessel." Prem stared. "But I thought strength looked shinier." "Strength," she whispered, "is shaped in the mud. True power is tender." And as Prem touched the edges of his cloak, he noticed something new. It was becoming earth, becoming clay, becoming form. Vīrya Karuṇā, power, tenderness. So, a little insight into the Tantric teachings. In Kashmir Shaivism, non-dual Shaiva Tantra, it teaches that even contraction is divine. Nothing that we experience is not divine consciousness, is not God, is not the universe. Even the struggles we experience, they're simply divinity in various forms of contraction. Speaking into the 5 powers of God, we have emission, stasis, dissolution, concealment, and revelation. And oftentimes, our divinity can be in a state of concealment, especially with something like grief. However, when we call it struggle, it's often just Shakti withdrawing into herself. It's just energy in a state of contraction. Not to punish us, but to recalibrate us. In these moments, the impurities, māla, surface. So in Tantric teaching, there are 3 impurities which inhibit us from residing in our divinity, residing in our liberation, which keep us in suffering. These are the purity of individuation, the impurity of differentiation, and then the impurity of action. And it's things like self-doubt, shame, superiority, and judgment, they arise so that they can dissolve, not so we can fight them. So there's a quote I love which really helped me with my grief, which is, what is grief if not love persevering? That to know great suffering and grief is to have known great love in life. And so if you're in a period of grieving, know that that's only possible because the one that you loved, whether that be a partner, a family member, an unborn child, or even an aspect of yourself, is because you were able to love so deeply. And when we can remember that, we can alchemize the grief that we're experiencing into gratitude, a practice that I found useful as I consciously moved through the 5 stages of grief, was to find gratitude for what I've learned on the journey. Because in doing so, the suffering ceases to be that and evolves into something to celebrate. Tantra doesn't ask us to bypass struggle. It invites us to include it, to honor it, and let it reshape us into better vessels for power, tenderness, and truth. And so I have this mantra for you. Vīrya Karuṇā. Vīrya meaning strength, vitality, heroic power, and Karuṇā meaning compassion and tender awareness. This mantra is designed to help resolve the inner split between power and vulnerability. Vīrya Karuṇā purifies the subtle channels, the nadis, of false separation. That being strong means being invulnerable, and that compassion means weakness. Through the repetition of the mantra, it alchemizes self-judgment into empathy for self and others alike. I found that for myself it was difficult to empathize with another because I was criticizing and judging myself, and in finding a mantra that worked for me, it was a different one than this, but this one is proving useful for me now as well. Vīrya Karuṇā, power, tenderness. It purifies. The idea of mantra, or the technology of mantra, is that the Sanskrit language vibrates at the frequency of the thing to which it points, which isn't true for all language. It's possible to say the word love without being in the vibration or felt sense of the word love, of the emotion of love. Whereas Sanskrit, it's that thing embodied through sound. And so by repeating Vīrya Karuṇā, it facilitates finding tenderness in power and power in tenderness. And in those moments where, for me in my journey, getting lost in the mind loops or stuck in the emotions, the mantra is used as a tool to cleanse and purify by fixating the mind on something more empowering than the loops it's stuck in. It facilitates becoming the emotion of something more empowered. This is Tantric understanding that thoughts and emotions aren't separate, they're inextricably linked, opposite ends of the same spectrum. You can't have one without the other. And so if you're stuck in a harrowing emotion, it's because there is a thought construct which is fueling it, and a belief that's sat behind it, from which it's originating. And oftentimes we hold beliefs that aren't true, they're limited and limiting. And by understanding the emotion and the thought, we can ascertain, discern the belief and rewrite it into one that's more empowering. So I have a short practice for you designed to support. Write down 3 specific qualities you've developed through this season of challenge. Speak them aloud as declarations of power, and let these be the roots from which your next action grows. I know how challenging this space, this period, this time can be. Let the mantra empower, let the story purify, and if you're wanting additional support, you can join the mailing list where I send out integration packs weekly, or you can please reach out if you're curious about having an alchemy session where we can understand what it is that you're experiencing, ascertain the limited thoughts and inhibiting beliefs beneath that, and rewrite them so that you can reset and start to create effective change in your life. Thank you for joining me. See you soon.